All right, so in this video, we'll learn a little bit more about Karen's career path and the choices she made along the way that got her where she is now. So I'm curious, Karen, you were in this corporate role. What enabled you to decide to leave that role?
Well, I was influenced by a few people in my life, but I also took a little bit of a break to think about what was important to me in life. So I took a 6 month sabbatical from my corporate job, and that had me traveling, but also interacting with a lot of different people, choosing a lot of different life paths, if you will, that heavily influenced where I saw myself going.
Yeah, well, and I hear that courage to take a pause, right, and take that 6 months and then be putting yourself out there and connecting with different type of folks. It sounds like that expanded the range of what was possible.
Yeah, actually, someone actually asked me this question. It was like, what would you do or what do you want to do? And it was really powerful because it was asked with no preconceptions, no consequences, just what do you want to do? And I didn't know the answer to the question. I'd been climbing a corporate ladder in London and I didn't know the answer to that question. I had been questioning myself a lot because I knew I was not happy with the world I was in, not happy with the career I was in, but I didn't have the space to really figure out what it was that wasn't resonating with me. Then I coupled that with a yoga course, and when I was on the yoga course, I was doing a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, and really taking some mind space away from the work that I had. And during that time, that's when I started to realize all the things that weren't necessarily resonating with me in the career I was in at that point in time. So yeah, that's how I developed it.
Yeah, well, and what you're saying resonates with me in terms of what I see with folks in career transition. The first, just that question of what do I want to be doing? A lot of folks don't ask themselves that. And the second, that gut check, the which parts of this are working for me and which aren't. And so I'm curious, as you've moved through different roles, like what has that gut check led you to understand or learn?
So I went through multiple roles. I left my corporate background and I taught yoga for a while. And what resonated with me was connection with people. And and I was really happy to be teaching yoga and to be doing something different from what I'd done before. But it was still work. So it was interesting to me to realize that there was still a gut check in there to say, oh, but I don't want to do this every day, or it still works, so it's not necessarily always fun, even though I love yoga. And then moving into like writing and proofreading and finance along the way, I started to realize that it was more to do with who I was working with, um, rather than some of the content, some of the actual functional work that I was doing. So therefore, I could bring the expertise that I had already, the skills that I was always really good at, which was finance, and add that to the thing that I knew sparked like excitement inside of me, which was connection and learning about different people, different businesses, and things like that. That's basically what my gut reactions were along the way.
Yeah, well, and those connections to people who actually light you up and interest you, you can just see how that resonates for you. Anything that was hard nose, any gut checks where you were like, oh gosh, like this really isn't working?
When, like, during my journey,
Yeah.
like during the development journey, there were a few. So I was pursuing actually a career for a while of being a writer, and some of the opportunities that came up were hard nosed. So they were like entry level writing because I didn't have any formal writing experience. They were entry level jobs that had questionable morals. So, for example, one was basically taking an article that was already written and regurgitating that in a different way with different different words so that the copy would be better, so that the SEO would work better. And I just couldn't do it. It was good money, but I couldn't do it because it didn't resonate with my values. And that's another thing that I learned along the way, was just how important the value piece was to me, and how important the people and what their values were in the businesses I work with.
Yeah, and it sounds like through seeing those folks who you connect with well, and then seeing almost the values get stepped on in certain roles, that gives you greater confidence about where there's a good fit versus not.
Yeah, I think so. But that's what's important to me, and it's not necessarily what's important to everyone. I realized during like the journey of finding different work and trying different things, that it wasn't necessarily the job that I hadn't liked in London. It wasn't the job that was making me upset. It was the values of the people around me and the values of the corporations. And that's not that they're evil corporations or anything. It was just the values that didn't resonate with mine, and it was changing me fundamentally from who I was at a base level. And I think it's important, or it was important in my journey, to understand who I was at a base level, which is why the yoga helped, to be able to actually decide where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. Because if I didn't understand any of that, it was almost pointless.
Yeah, well, and it's a wonderful perspective to almost have this other lens of knowing yourself from the yoga produce these outcomes for your career that one might not have connected, but they almost work together to yield this outcome, right? It's really cool.
Yeah, that's the way it worked out for me. And I don't necessarily prescribe yoga to everyone or recommend, I recommend meditation to everyone, but that's just the way it worked out for me. The two things, I had a dramatic learning when I was literally doing a yoga course alongside a contract in London in a corporate office, and just the contrast between the two, and really figuring out how I resonated with both, but where I could bring them together. It was definitely dramatic for me.
Yeah, well, and really powerful to start tuning into what's resonating for you and making decisions based on that. That's huge.
Yeah, it's something that I've learned recently over the past few years, and definitely something that I try and continue with, to try and follow my gut more than I ever used to, because my brain really overrides on a lot of occasions. But I believe our instincts are teaching us something. I believe our instincts are showing us something. And when you almost have physical reactions because of stress or anything, because of a job, like if you're stressed or you can't eat, or you're anxious in certain ways and you're having a physical reaction, that's when, for me, that's when I really try and analyze, okay, what is going on here? Because I'm not listening to what my instincts are telling me, because my body's reacting in a completely flight kind of mode, so it's not good.
Yeah, well, and that's super powerful, right? That mind-body connection. And sometimes our body's telling us, this is not right. And they may not have the verbal way to tell us that. And so we sort of have to dial in and listen and say, okay, what is this telling me? What is this stress or this anxiety telling me? Sounds like you've been there.
Yeah, and as tuned, as in tune as I can be, as a yoga teacher or whatever. Ultimately, I will be honest and say that my body shows me before I realize it. But my body will show up with anxiety before I realize that something's not right. But I have a very emotional body, I guess. It just reacts in crazy ways that I'm like, oh no, what am I doing wrong?
Well, and it is the power of that unconscious to make itself conscious is definitely powerful. So
yeah, my body just shouts messages at me that I don't ignore things.
Yeah. Well, and it's so powerful just to hear the different stages of your journey and how you've chosen resonance throughout them, or when you haven't, your body has let you know. It's really powerful, I think, for folks who are making that type of transition themselves and wondering, okay, what's not right? Where can I go? So thank you for being open and sharing your journey.
No problem. I love sharing my journey, and my general points to anyone that is questioning things is to really try and ask yourself the difficult questions, or sit and think yourself, because you're the only one that has the answers to it. And I personally always look outside for validation, for advice, for everything, but I'm really the only one. That's one of my biggest learnings, is I'm really the only one that knows where I truly want to go. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone that's on that journey at the moment.
Nice. Ah, love it. Awesome.